welcome to Anshika's Academy, and this is the chapter of Ancient Indian History, chapter number 3, Nature of Sources and Historical Construction. इसका part 2. Foreign accounts. Indigenous literature can be supplemented by foreign accounts. To India came Greek, Roman, and Chinese visitors either as travelers or religious converts, and they left behind accounts of the things that they saw. It is remarkable that Alexander's invasion find no mention in Indian sources, and it is entirely on the basis of Greek sources that we have to reconstruct the history of his Indian exploits. The Greek writers mention Sandrocotus, a contemporary of Alexander the Great, who invaded India in 326 BC. Prince Sandrocotus is identified with Chandragupta Maurya, whose date of accession is fixed at 322 BC. This identification has served as the sheet anchor in ancient Indian chronology. The Indica of Megasthenes, who came to the court of Chandragupta Maurya, has been preserved only in fragments quoted by subsequent classical writers. These fragments, when read together, furnish valuable information not only about the system of Mauryan administration but also about social classes and economic activities in the Maurya period. The Indica is not free from crudelty and exaggerations, which is true of many other ancient accounts. Greek and Roman accounts of the 1st and 2nd centuries mention many Indian poets and enumerate items of trade between India and the Roman Empire. The Periplus of Erythraean Sea and Ptolemy's geography, both written in Greek, provide valuable data for the study of ancient geography and commerce. The date ascribed to the first ranges between the AD 80 and 115, whereas the second is attributed to about 150 AD. The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, which was written by the anonymous author, described the Roman trade in the Red Sea, Persian Gulf, and in Indian Ocean, Pyrenees, Natrolis, Naturalis Historia, which relates to the 1st century, was written in Latin and tells us about trade between India and Italy. The last Greco-Roman scholar who wrote on India was called Cosmos Indico Platus. He hailed from Alexandria, center of Hellenistic culture in Egypt, around 550. He wrote in the Christian topography, which mentioned Christians in India and Sri Lanka, and also refers to horse trade of the Chinese sailors mentioned may be made of Fayan and Wensang. Both of them were Buddhists and came to this country to visit the Buddhist shrines and to study Buddhism. The first came in the beginning of the 5th century and the second in the second quarter of the 7th century. Fayan described the social, religious and economic conditions in India in the age of Guptas. The Wensang presents a similar account of India in the age of Harsha. Village study. Relics of communal sharing is feasts, festivals and pujas throw light on the egalitarian character of ancient tribal society. Loyalty to the clan and caste persist to this day. Survivals of rituals gives us an idea of ancient sects and also of the institutions of marriage and family. High caste people do not milk the cow and never take to the blood. Their contempt of manual labor promotes untouchability. Strong traces of inequality are not confined to caste alone but also color the relationship between men and women. Till the 1930s, even the sati system prevailed in the rural parts of Bihar. The social inequalities which prevail despite universal suffrage indicate the nature of ancient Indian society. Rural rituals and caste prejudices illustrated many of the Dhammasastra's rules governing our ancient polity and society. Natural science. The use of findings of social sciences started about 30 years ago for the historical construction of ancient India. Recently, the use of natural science has begun. Evidence from chemistry, geology and biology has become relevant to the study of ancient India. Historical sense. Ancient Indians are charged with a lack of sense of history. It is evident that they did not write history in the manner in it is done today, nor did they write it in the way the Greeks did. We have a sort of history in the Puranas, which are 18 in number. 18 was conventional term, though encyclopedic in content. The Puranas provide dynastic history up to the beginning of Gupta. Up to the beginning of the Gupta rule, they mention the places where the events took place and sometimes discuss their causes and effects. Some statements about events are made in the future tense, although they were recorded much after the events had occurred. The authors of the Puranas were not unaware of the idea of change, which is the essence of history. The Puranas speak of four ages called Krita, Treta, Dwapar, and Kali. Each succeeding age is depicted as worse than the preceding one, and as one age slides into the other, moral values and social institutions denigrate the importance of time and place. Vital elements in history is indicated. It is said that dharma became adharma and vice versa in accordance with changes in time and place. Several eras according to which events were recorded were started in ancient India. Vikram Samvat began in 57 to 58 BC, Shaka Samvat in AD 78, and the Gupta era in AD 319. Inscriptions record events in the context of time and place. During the 3rd century BC, Ashokan inscriptions demonstrated considerable historical sense. Ashoka ruled for 27 years. His inscriptions record events that happened from the 8th to the 27th regional year. To that events relating to only 9 regnal years figure in the inscriptions that have been discovered. Future discoveries may throw light on events relating to the remaining years of his reign. Similarly, in the 1st century BC, Kharavela of Kalinga records a large number of events in his life year by year in the Hathigumpha inscriptions. Indians display a considerable historical sense of biological writings, a good example of which is the composition of Harshcharita by Banabhatta in the 7th century. It is a semi-biographical work written in an ornate style which became the despair of later imitators. It describes the early career of Harshvardhana, although highly exaggerated. It gives an excellent idea of court life under Harsha and the social and religious life in his age. Later, several other charitas or biographies were written. Sandhyakara Nandini's Ramcharita, 12th century, narrates the story of the conflict between the Kharavela Kavarta peasants and the Pala Prince Rampala, resulting in the latter's victory. Belana's Vikramank Devcharita recounts the achievements of the patron Vikramaditya 6 1036 से 1127, the Chalukya king of Kalyan. Even the biographies Charita of some merchants of Gujarat were written in AD 12 to 13th centuries. Similar historical works may have been written in South India, but thus far only one such account has been discovered. This is called Mushika Vamsa and was written by Atula in the 11th century. It is an account of the dynasty of Mushikas which ruled in northern Kerala. However, the best example of the earliest historical writing is provided by the Rastarangini, or the stream of kings, written by Kalhana in the 12th century. It is a string of biographies of the kings of Kashmir and can be considered to be the first work to possess several characteristics of historical writings as it is understood today. Constructing history. So far, numerous sites, prehistoric, protohistoric, and historical, have been excavated and explored, but the results do not find a place in the mainstream of ancient Indian history. The stages of social evolution in India cannot be properly comprehended without taking into account the results of prehistoric and protohistoric archaeology, not to speak of historical archaeology. Also, nearly 200 sites relating to the ancient historical period have been excavated, yet their relevance to the study of social, economic, and cultural trends in ancient times has not been adequately discussed in studies. This needs to be done both in the context of rural and urban aspects of ancient India. So far, the significance of largely Buddhist and some Brahminical sites has been highlighted, but religious history needs to be seen in relation to social and economic developments. Ancient history has so far been constructed principally on the basis of literary sources. Foreign and indigenous coins and inscriptions play some part, but the text has receive greater weightage. Now new methods must be adopted. Historical knowledge keeps growing. We have to be more critical about the dates and contents of the text. This may be done if we examine the text in the context of archaeological evidence. Initially, archaeologists were inspired by written texts, and several sites mentioned in the Brahmanical and Buddhist texts were excavated. This immensely enriched historical information through the digging results did not always confirm the contents of the text. Through full-length reports of many excavated sites are yet to be published, it is advisable to examine the texts in the context of archaeological findings. For the study of the age of the Rig Veda, we have to take into account of the Gandhara grave culture, in which the horse was used and the dead were ceramated in the second millennium BC. We have to establish a correlation between the later Vedic age on the one hand and the painted graveware and other types of archaeological findings on the other. Similarly, early Pali texts have to be related to the northern black polished ware and BPW archaeology. Besides, the information derived from the Sangam text needs to be correlated with that inferred from inscriptions and early megalithic archaeology in peninsular India. Archaeological evidence should be considered far more important than the long family trees found in the Puranas. The Puranic traditions could be used to date Rama of Ayodhya to around 2000 BC, but diggings and extensive explorations in Ayodhya do not show any settlement around that date. Similarly, also Krishna plays an important role in the Mahabharata. The earliest inscriptions and scriptural pieces from Mathura between 200 and 300 AD do not attest to his presence. Given such difficulties, the ideas of an epic age based on the Ramayana and the Mahabharata must be discarded. Also, in the past, it formed a chapter in most survey volumes on ancient India. Of course, several stages of social evolution in both the Ramayana and Mahabharata can be detected. This is so because the epics do not belong to a single phase of social evolution. We may recall that they have undergone several editions. Further, on the basis of literary tradition and epigraphic material, Vardhaman, Mahavira and Gautam Buddha are generally dated to the 6th century BC, but the cities they revisited are archaeologically not older than 400 BC, and therefore the tradition-based dates and these great personalities need to be reconsidered. On chronological and rational grounds, archaeology, inscriptions and coins are more important than text. However, the grammatical works of Panini and Patanjali have almost fixed dates. They are comparatively free from myths and legends, and are therefore as important as coins, inscriptions, and the results of excavations. Many inscriptions have to date been dismissed on the ground that they are of little historical value. Historical value is taken to mean information necessary to reconstruct political history. However, a royal inscription contains exaggerations. The term hundreds of thousands seems to be a clinch, or in Ashokan inscription it is applied to people and animals, and raise doubts about the number of the people killed in the Kalinga war and those brought to Patliputra. These are exaggerations too in the inscriptions of Samudragupta and King Chandra. Despite these exaggerations in comparison to Puranic traditions, inscriptions are certainly more reliable. Thus, though the Puranas are used to push back the origin of the Satavahanas, the inscriptions place it in the 1st century BC. Inscriptions may indicate the regnal period of a king, his conquest and its extent, but they also reveal trends in the development of polity, society, economy, and religion. This study therefore does not use inscriptions merely for political and or religious History epigraphic land grants are valued not for the family trees and list of conquests but more importantly for the rise of new states and changes in the social and agrarian structure, particularly in post-Gupta times. Similarly, coins need to be used not only for the reconstruction of the history of the Indo-Greeks, Sakas, Satavahanas and Kushanas but also for the history of trade and urban life. In sum, a careful collection of the material derived from texts, coins, inscription, archaeology, etc. is essential for historical reconstruction. We have seen that this raises the problem of relative importance of the sources. Thus, coins, inscriptions, and archaeology are considered more important than mythologies found in the epics of Puranas. Mythologies may support dominant norms, validate social mores and justify the privileges and disabilities of people organized in castes and other social groups, but the events described in them cannot be taken to be true. Past practices can also be explained with the help of some ancient survivals in our own times. Familiarity with the village life and the insight derived from the study of primitive people are valuable assets in the construction of ancient history. A sound historical reconstruction cannot ignore developments in other ancient societies. A comparative view may remove the obsession with the idea of a rare or unique in ancient India and may bring out those traits that ancient India shares with the past societies of the other countries. We may also use the results of human genetic research to learn about Indian connection with peoples in other parts of the world. A scientific study of heredity and generation-wise inherited traits indicate ethnic mixture, dispersal of population and dissemination of culture. Chronology: 3 million BC. Writing enters the Indus culture 1500 to 1000 BC. Rig Veda 1000 to 500 BC. Yajurveda, Atharvaveda, Brahmanas, Aranyakas and Upanishads 600 to 300 BC. Shrota Sutras and Graha Sutras. Shrota Sutras and Graha Sutras 6th century BC. Mahavira and the Buddha as per literature 500 to 200 BC. Dhamma Sutras 450 BC. Grammar of Panini 5th century BC. Mahavira and the Buddha in the context of archaeology 326 BC. Alexander invasion 322 BC. Accession of Chandragupta Maurya 3rd century BC. Decipherable writing in India 57 to 58 BC. Vikrama Samvat 1st century BC. Hathigumpha inscription of Kharavela of Kalinga 1st century BC. The earliest Pali Buddhist text compiled in Sri Lanka 1st century AD. The Asastra of Kautilya finally compiled 78 AD. Start of Shaka Samvat 80 to 115 AD. 115 AD. The Periplus of Erythraean Sea 150 AD. Ptolemy's Geography 319 AD. Start of the Gupta era 400 AD. Mahabharata, Ramayana and major Puranas finally compiled 4th century AD. Earliest Indian manuscript found in Central Asia 5th century AD. Fayan comes to India 6th century AD. The Prakrit Jena text finally compiled in Vallabhi 7th century AD. Huansang visit Sarita by Banabhatta 11th century AD. Mushika Vamsa by Atula 11th to 12th century. Vikramank Devi Charita by Bhillana 12th century AD. Ramcharita by Sandhyakara Nandi. Rastarangini by Kalhana 1837. Ashokan inscriptions first deciphered by James Prinsep 1815. T. Fentler first read Ashoka's inscription. This was chapter number 3rd. Chapter number 3rd, Nature of Sources and Historical Construction. Thanks for watching.